Hello, I am Raphael Bob Waxberg, the creator of BoJack Horseman. This is Season 1, Episode 3, Prickly Muffin, and I am joined by...
Rachel Kaplan.
And Allison Fleureau.
And Rachel and Allie were assistants on the show. Although, I guess, Allie, you were not technically an assistant. You were the script coordinator.
I was the script coordinator.
On Season 1. And Rachel was the writer's assistant on Season 1.
Writer's PA, and then...
Oh, is that right?
And then I filled in for Allie. I was like both.
Okay.
And then when Allie had
she
to
got
pee...
quickly promoted.
You guys, fast promotion.
Yes.
And both have since become television writers on their own part. Both have written in later seasons of BoJack.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your memories were of starting on this show. Because, Allie, you were one of the first people we hired.
Yeah, you were before me.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing like the little 5-minute teaser you guys had made for Netflix and being like, this is really interesting. And I remember also my husband Pete was like, you have to work. Like,
what did Pete know about it?
I showed him the little 5-minute. And he was like, this
so the same thing you saw. But...
Yeah. And because I was working at Conan, but I knew Noel and Steve and had worked with them before, and I met
Noel and
with
Steve,
you,
the other executive producers,
and I met with you, Raphael, and was like, he seems really great and smart and funny, and I'm saying that now I don't have to get a job now, so,
so
that's actually
you
true.
Mean it. Yeah.
And so I came over, and the guys knew I knew how to like get a room up and running, and but my first memories are like, this is gonna be a really fun experience, and I was trying to explain the show to people. I'm like, well, it's a depressed talking horse and it's animated. And I don't know if some people are like, what are you going to work on?
You're leaving Conan for this?
For a talking horse. And I was like, yeah.
But I recall early on how helpful you were in that sort of organizational stuff of like...
I am a little OCD.
Yeah, you
but
formatted
also,
all the script. Like I was like, is this what a script looks like? I don't know why I didn't know. And you're like, yes, how about this format? Or when we go to a flashback, we'll put a flashback slug line in it. You were very specific about how you wanted the scripts to look, which is helpful in a script coordinator.
Yes. I've used Final Draft a long time.
Yes.
And I'm also a bit OCD and like, you know, even if a friend just gives me a script to read, I'm always finding spelling mistakes. So I'm good at getting that taken care of.
And then if I recall correctly, you were the one who said to Noel and Steve, you need to hire another person. And that person should be my friend Rachel.
Yes. Rachel had actually been my intern at Conan.
Right.
And still liked me.
And now I owe my whole career to Allie because she got me this job.
Well, you also have intelligence and you're funny and all that stuff.
I mean, listen, this is debatable, but yes. I remember starting and you were doing like 4 jobs, it felt like. Because it was all... starting something is so difficult, figuring out how it works.
And it was going quickly, because I believe I started in December of 2013. And it was...
probably a little earlier than that. Maybe November. No?
I think
December?
it was December. Yeah, It was after Thanksgiving.
Okay, yeah. You're right, because I think we interviewed Peter while he was away for Thanksgiving.
Because you guys were like, can you start right away? And I was like, oh, let me talk to the Conan
No time
people.
to talk. We need you now.
And
it was really a mad dash that first season.
Because also you guys were doing in 6 months what later you did in like
a
more
full
like
year.
10 to 11, 10 to 12.
Year.
Yeah.
So it was like, holy
insane.
smack, we gotta go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and
I remember not having to interview because, and thank
We're
God
so
because I'm not good at interviews.
People that
I think I talked on the phone to whoever was the.
Yeah, I don't remember
Victoria?
talking to you before you came
No,
in.
I didn't meet you. I didn't know what I was.
Snuck her in.
Yeah.
So let's, because go ahead.
I had memories of like the early assistant stuff, but we can.
What were the early assistant stuff?
Well, I didn't know what I was doing. Now, 6 seasons in, it's such a finely oiled machine. But like at the time, I was in charge of not only like getting lunches, but making copies for the table read.
Oh, that's what the PA did. Yeah.
Yes, and I did not know how to do that. And I would go to Kinko's, and it would take me like 12 hours to put together the scripts.
Why did we print at the office?
When we were some of the times we were doing stuff on the weekends and stuff was closed here.
Why didn't we just open the building for you?
There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff being set up that I was
like... Did you
like,
say something to anyone? I feel like we could have.
I mean, I remember being like, the writers need food and water back there because like we were working long hours and sometimes like there were, and like making sure you guys. I don't think they were as used to having a writer's room run actually here.
At Shadow Machine.
Yes, though they're wonderful and they have amazing, talented people and really cute dogs. But I was like, hey, we got to have this. We got to have this.
Yes, writers are very fragile, spoiled individuals. They need their treats and perks.
And if people work here, they need to like veggie grill.
They need to like it?
Yeah. Because we order a lot of veggie grill.
Oh, okay. I think we don't order so much anymore. Maybe there's a revolt.
Yeah.
Well, also, I think what's happened more and more is Nick, who's our writer's PA now, knows to just get me whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like get the whole menu around what Raphael can eat.
This is a major difference between season 1 and 6. Is that now lunch is chosen for us. Like we have 3 options. I can't believe I'm talking about the lunch options. And season 1, I was in charge of lunch, and I had a binder that was like menus falling out of this horribly disgusting binder.
Where did the binder come from? You didn't put that together.
I don't remember.
I think it was here, and then we added to it.
Okay.
But it was always lunch. I mean, food is important, especially when you're here for long hours and people can't get out. Which I mean, they want to be here and it's fun, and the room was always a great experience. But food's important. So
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah, good food. So I think one like standard piece of advice that aspiring TV writers get when they come out to LA is like, you should be an assistant somewhere. And I did not go through that route, and you both did successfully. So I'm curious though, like, what is the first? Like, how do you become an assistant in a writer's room? Like, where do you have to start as a PA, like on set, and you work your way inwards? Or
some people do. Some people start. I was able to like. I mean, at Conan, I was a writer's coordinator, and
what is a writer's coordinator?
That like is sort of like a little bit of like the second brain for the head writer, like making sure people know like, hey, here's these news stories. We want jokes on this, or we want pitches, and sending out assignments and compiling notes and taking notes. So
what kind of
somewhat glorified typing monkey, but also like making sure like people are getting information, because they may write a sketch in the morning that they're shooting at 1 p.m. You know, so sort of communication, and then also calling meetings. I had a bullhorn at Conan, which was fun because it was
amazing.
I would just like be like, guys. But yeah, so I got recommended to that job by the former head writer who I had worked as an assistant to. So that, I mean, for me, that was like, I've worked as a manager's assistant, which I did learn a lot from that job, where like how people get attached to things, and got to talk to some amazing people. Like Alan Rickman was one of her clients.
Oh, wow.
And like hearing his voice and saying something normal, like, well, I've got pajamas on. That's a terrible impression of, but
what
like,
are you guys talking about?
Oh my God, is Alan Rickman in the booth right now? Was that here?
not in a creepy way. Like it was late in London versus LA. But anyway, but
that is an actual quote from Alan Rickman. I've got pajamas on.
It was something like very like every day we're hearing it.
Well, he's not going to fight you on it, so you can say.
Hearing it in his amazing voice was so hilarious, because it was something very like mundane, you know. But yeah, so I kind of worked, like, met people that way. Like when I worked as a showrunner's assistant, they knew I'd worked for a talent manager and like could handle a heavy desk.
And so when you had these other jobs, would you tell people like, if you can get me closer to the writer's room, I want to go there? Like, how vocal are you in those situations?
I mean, it took me a little while, I feel like, to admit sometimes. Like, I was sort of like, yeah, I want to be a writer, but I was a little shyer, I feel like, when I first started. But also, I was lucky I had some very supportive people who are still like my mentors. And like I had one showrunner, old boss, who was like, "You're funnier than most writers I know," and so and I was like, "Cool, being an only child is working out."
You're an only child?
Yeah.
Oh man,
we knew that.
Yeah, I forgot.
So be an only child.
Yeah.
No. And
Rachel,
then,
you're also an only child.
I'm also an only child. Clarifying.
So yeah, I mean that was sort of my route, but there's so many. And with
what
Rachel.
What about you, Rachel? What's your story?
Well, I was lucky enough to do the Conan internship in college, so I met a lot of people there. But a lot of my friends who are writers now and started as writers' assistants that I am friends with from college, when they graduated, they just reached out to everyone they possibly could. People that our professors knew.
It's a hard thing. It's weird.
It's like really weird.
Because it feels like you're asking favors, and it feels like you're leveraging your own privilege in a gross way.
It definitely feels weird, but
that's how if you have the connections,
you have to do it. Reach out. And even if you don't have the connections, I definitely emailed when I graduated people that were associated with my school that I did not know and did not know me. And I mean, all you need is one person to give you the lowest level job.
Right. And I will say also, as someone now who is a person that people try to, reach out to, like, I am never annoyed or offended when someone's like, hey, can we get a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I if I can't, then I either ignore the email or I say no, but I'm never like, oh, this person who I've never met is annoying, and I will remember them later and tell other people not to. So, like, worst case scenario, nothing happens.
You're going to get a lot more people emailing you now.
And just be aware, I will probably ignore your emails, but every once in a while when I have time and I'm like, oh yeah, let's go look at the pile and see if there's anyone that I can, do a favor for now.
Yeah.
Because we want to pull people up and help people when we can. The problem is we're so busy, we don't usually have the time to.
Yeah.
I think if you have the ability to intern during college, I mean, I interned for some production companies. I worked for George Clooney's company and Richard Donner, and like that helped me get, just having those references that can say she can handle a job.
Right. And then every once in a while, I am asked by other friends, being like, "Hey, I'm looking for an assistant. I need to fill this job. Who would be good?" And if I'm like, "Oh, if I have some names," then I'm, thrilled to pass them along.
That's why it's so important to email and tell people you're looking for work, because if a job opens up, they need to know that you're one of the people that's available and ready to go.
All right. So then you both got into the BoJack room.
Yes.
And what is the difference between a writer's assistant and a script coordinator?
I mean, the script coordinator does some of the same stuff in terms of like taking notes in the room, but also I have to make sure like revisions are going out and double checking that the scripts look right and, spelled right. I mean, and pass on any information to anyone who needs it, both like animators or casting, making sure that actors are getting their scripts. And, but a lot of it, like some of it is overlap, I would say. Mm-hmm. But also like if people don't get the right info, that's my fault. So, yeah.
You have to be much more precise about grammar and spelling mistakes too, because you do the script writer is the final pass on every script, and if it goes to the room and there's like a typo, then
they will make fun of you.
Yes.
The other difference is the script coordinator has to be a master of Final Draft, whereas I, the writer's assistant, can barely use Final Draft, constantly making errors. And it's, it can be embarrassing at times because the screen is up in the room.
So in our room, when we are, there's kind of two parts to the writer's assistant job, right? There's one just like taking notes while everyone's talking,
right?
Where the screen, no one can see the screen.
It's just a Word document.
It's just in a Word document, right? And that's kind of just trying to rate. I mean, that's a challenge in itself, just like to know what's important enough to write down and when
you want to learn how to type 100 words per minute.
Yeah,
around there. That's like if people want to become
fast. But you also have to like have a very fast brain of knowing like, oh, this is nothing.
Yeah,
I don't need to waste my time writing this.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden this turned into something.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That happens.
And you have to absolutely, and you have to be listening all the time, because if it does turn into something, I want to remember the steps it took to get there. So I can like quickly maybe write down a little bit of what we were talking about to get into the main thing that's important. And then you just kind of learn like what keeps coming back around idea-wise. And the notes just kind of take shape.
Do you feel like as former assistants, you have stronger opinions now as writers when you read the notes? You're like, oh, they didn't do it. Or do you...
You do notice if someone misses getting like a whole joke run that was working. And like I understand also like how hard it is sometimes to keep up. Yeah. But also it's really important to you. That is what your job is. And so like the writers are depending on you.
I feel like Mehar specifically, as a former assistant,
Yeah.
never took guff from it. He was like very like, look, I've been in your shoes. This is how you got to do it.
He would sometimes, if I was having trouble with Final Draft, he would just like come over and take the keys. I'm like, listen, that's fine. Do what you got to do.
I one time had worked as a writer's assistant for a DreamWorks movie for just like a couple days, and they had a court transcriptionist.
Oh, wow.
And she couldn't keep up, and I could.
Wow.
Like, she was like kind of like, what's happening? Like with pitching, she like, it was very different from court because everyone's talking over each other.
Yeah.
So you have to like really like know when and who to listen to, and
then also, go ahead.
I'll see sometimes, because I remember if someone is talking quietly, getting frustrated that I wasn't getting all of it, and sometimes now as a writer, if someone's talking quietly, I'll look to the writer's assistant and be like, oh, I can tell that they're getting annoyed. And then I'll like repeat it louder afterwards. But yeah.
And then I feel like also traditionally, actually I don't know traditionally, I know in our room and some of the other rooms I've been in, like the script coordinator is kind of the writer's assistant's boss in a way. Or like it's kind of seen as a step up. Like
I mean,
that's the order.
If
right?
I have to get stuff out, then I have to be like, hey, I need you in the room.
Right.
I do try to be aware of like also people need a break now and then. So like if the writer's assistant is in the room a long time, like make sure that they and also like make sure I always have my phone on if they need to text me.
But also the script coordinator lasts longer on our show, right? Because there's more scripts coming out as we're in records and animatics.
Yeah.
Whereas the writer's assistant is done when the writer's room is done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that way, it's like a longer lasting job.
Yes, for this show, because you make radio play scripts, and so you have to like, again, listen and make sure you're getting every little change.
I remember when you left Allie, offering the script coordinator job to Rachel, like as a promotion. Rachel,
yes.
No.
Well, I was really happy being the writer's assistant. I like being in the room.
But I have to say, all's well that ends well. But it threw me for a loop a little bit.
Really?
Because I thought what you were saying, because I thought like, oh, this is the trajectory. Like you're a writer's assistant, then you're a script coordinator, then you're a writer. And I thought, oh, Rachel doesn't want to be a script coordinator. Does she not want to be a writer? Am I wasting her time? Like, is this a position that should be going to someone who wants to be a writer?
I feel
this is
like
a great
you guys
room
should
to
have
be
been
in.
communicating.
I should have just asked you at the time.
Yeah.
But instead, I was lazy and I just kept hiring you, and then eventually made you a writer. So it worked out. But if
that was my greatest fear.
is that I would not know. Well, so that's another question. Is as an assistant, how do you read like when to pitch jokes or when to like go to someone and say, hey, would you read my script? How do you, because that can be a tough thing, I would imagine.
I think it's different for every person. I'm pretty passive in general, so I was happy just kind of being in the room, and if the opportunity was perfect and I know I had a good joke, then I would say something. But I felt like, at least in the first couple of years, was pretty quiet and would only send stuff to writers if they said, hey, by the way, if you have anything you want me to read, I'd be happy to do that. But then I was a writer's assistant for 4 years and was very happy there. And I've seen other people, my friends, be a writer's assistant for a year and then become a writer because they're more aggressive and maybe take more steps. So I think to each their own.
Yeah.
But
one thing that I feel like the Rachel way of being proactive is saying, oh, my friend Alana was hired as a staff writer on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. We started around the same time. I go, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. I see what she's saying.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No, but it worked. You became a writer. That's what you got to do. You have to, because, I'm so in my own head that, yes, I understand that all the people working for me are looking for advancement and thinking about them, but I'm just like, I got to get my show out. Like, it's not, my first thought isn't, how can I help the careers of other people, even though I'm happy to do it? And so it's helpful to be like, hey, I wrote the script. Would you like to read it?
Yeah.
When you have a moment. I think there's a respectful way and a pushy way to do it. There's a way to do it that annoys me, but I feel like most people know
it's
that.
Kind of, it's reading the room, so to speak. Because also, like, if there's a lot of pitching going on, you want to make sure to get the notes of the people who are hired to be there, but then also, if you have some ideas. This was I always felt like everyone here was really kind and open and supportive. But yeah, if there are certain rooms where I think people are not always as welcoming, but hopefully you find a way to like find the right timing.
Yeah. I'd say one piece of advice that I would give to anyone asking somebody else to read their script is to ask them before you send it. Because if I get an email saying, would you read my script? It's very easy for me to be like, I'm busy right now. But like in a month maybe, or, sure, send it over. But then if I get the script, then I'm like, oh, I don't know how to respond to this. I can't, okay, I have it. So I guess I won't respond until I've read it. And then like a month passes and that person is like, did they hate it?
Yeah.
Definitely checking in ahead of time.
Don't send it until you know they're going to read it. Because otherwise it is going to sit in their inbox and you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's valid.
It's just the polite thing.
It's also polite, yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if once in a while, like if someone asks me to read something now, like I'm not running a giant show like BoJack, but once in a while I'm like, this is a bad week, but like 2 weeks from now I can give you notes. And
I think, sorry.
No, that's all.
I think it's also important, like, yes, this is a job and you're trying to advance your career somewhat, but it's also about creating a good work environment, and it can't be about you advancing all the time. It's for the good of the show.
Because that is the balance, right? Because if I had an assistant, and this is not an example that I've ever come across, but I've heard this happen, where if someone feels like they're more interested, or they see this as a stepping stone and they're not interested in the job they have, nothing would make me want to read their work less.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like I want to feel like, oh, you are good at the job you're doing, which gives me good feelings and makes me want to help you.
Right.
If I feel like, oh, you're not doing your assistant job because you're too busy writing your own script, you're just like at every moment looking for one of the writers to validate you, then I'm annoyed at you.
You need to validate yourself.
That's also true.
But I mean, if you're taking a job on a show like this where it's super busy, like you, like whatever the job is, PA, script coordinator, writer, like you have to be there to support the show and make it run as well as you can from your point. But also, like, for me, like, I was still, like, writing other things, like, I have a writing partner and we were working on scripts, and then also, like, I ended up leaving here to go produce a movie. Like, that was a different, you have to do your job, but also always have a lot of irons in the fire.
Well, that's my other question, is that because this is a full-time job, and some shows even more, I mean, in our first season, we had a few late nights. Now we almost never do.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's a lot of energy. And I would imagine at the end of the day, you're exhausted. Like, how do you find the time to write and be creative? Because I know I've also worked with assistants on other shows who felt like they've done the work of making everyone love them. And, like, they have all these contacts now, but they still don't have their sample because it's hard to find the time to do that.
Yeah. I think in my experience, it's very rare that writing a sample is an easy experience.
Yeah.
It's always difficult because it's a different skill than being in a writer's room.
Right.
Especially if you're writing an original pilot. And it takes a long time. So I never had a regular schedule of, like, after work, I'm going to write for an hour. I know some people do. I don't know how they do that. I just kind of, if I have inspiration, try and do it when I can and don't beat myself up about it. And you're going to have time off, you know.
So do it during that time off, because you're not going to be able to do it.
Even sometimes like 20 minutes a day you'll get.
I can't believe that. For me, it's impoolpossible to write for 20 minutes a day. Like, I need an hour of warm up before like anything good comes out of me.
Yeah, you like to walk around with your headphones.
Well, no, I just mean like even sitting at my computer, like staring at it, like 20 minutes, I'm not going to get any. I mean, but maybe some people do. I guess I think you have the focus to do that. I do
sometimes,
not.
Yeah. Like I definitely was able to get like a bunch of other samples done while I was here.
I imagine having a writing partner helps with that
having
too.
A writing
you're
partner,
passing stuff back and forth.
Yeah, and then also I am like someone who's like, I'm one of those people who makes lists, and I'm like, what do I want to have done in 6 months? And sometimes I hit them, and sometimes I don't. And but then also like making sure you're meeting a lot of people, not just at your show. Like at Conan, I felt like I liked working late night, but that wasn't what I wanted forever. So I was always making sure to meet other people and and
luckily a lot of people come in and out of Conan.
Yeah.
They have guests every night.
Yeah, they do have guests every night. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that, but
are there any lessons about the job or about the craft of television writing that you remember learning from BoJack or picking up from the writers in the room or how we do things here?
I will say, I have said many times about you, Raphael, that you're one of the best feminists I've worked for.
Oh, stop! I assume you mean one of the best feminist males. I'm assuming.
But like
that's most of the people you've worked for, sadly.
But like I feel
Suck
like
it, Conan.
Sorry, Conan. But I do feel
he's not going to listen to this. It's okay.
I heard he was going to listen.
Oh, you heard?
Yeah.
He's a big fan.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the way you and Lisa worked, also even like the main characters, but also even like I remember there was an episode where there was a police captain and we're like, we'll make that a woman. And I think other shows I've been on, they wouldn't have thought to do that. And even though I'm a female and I try to, write for females and make sure that it's an even distribution, like I think you guys made me even more aware of it, which I'm really grateful for. And then also the thing I feel like I've learned both being here and over the years is like the best jokes come out of character where it only works for that specific character. And you created such specific voices and characters, and like writing for Mr. Peanut Butter for me was like so much fun because it's like only he could write only he could say that.
Yeah. I mean, I'll quickly say it's meant so much to me to be at a show where everyone is really supportive and nice, and ideas kind of flow off of each other. But I also learned that sometimes you have off days, not you, but
no, I
me.
do too.
And people are good at different things, and everyone, the balance of a room is so important, and you just kind of give yourself some leeway to have a bad day, and everyone, hopefully, if it's a good room, will pick up the slack, and, everything works out in the end, I hope. Also, Raphael does so much of the work, which is, amazing. He's
we
a
didn't
genius.
talk about this episode at all.
It was a great episode.
We had 0 comments.
I love this. Boxer versus
I
Raptor.
have a whole story about
Yay,
that.
Shadow Machine.
I always forget until the end. One of these commentaries, I'll tell the story about Boxer versus Raptor. Okay, thanks, guys! Gals!